Republican Seniors of Minnesota, a group of seasoned seniors that learn and discuss issues important to all Minnesotans, featuring guest speakers with traditional conservative values, plus Republican candidates at all levels, pledging strength and optimism. We believe in and advocate for the principles of personal responsibility, economic prosperity, peace through strong national defense, and limited, sensible government. Republican Seniors of Minnesota. It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, and thank you for coming this morning. We got a real special welcome to those attending via video on our live stream. It's good to see you after we've had Mother's Day to celebrate, and we've had the Minnesota fishing opener, and I think all the CD conventions are over already, and congratulations to those endorsed. I'm Terry Flower, chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. This meeting is being live streamed today by our volunteers from livestreampro.net. Really thank them. You can view the stream live on our website, YouTube, Rumble, even watch it on your large screen smart TV. You can ask us how. Maybe Mike can help you after the meeting. Okay. So we'd like to say hello. Join me, please. Say hello. Hello. All the folks on the live streaming. Good. Now, will you join me in an opening prayer? Cindy?
Eternal Father, loving God and author of grace everlasting, be with us as we bow our heads before Thee. We join before You with a common purpose and ask Your blessing on us to be productive in prayer, in fellowship, and in learning from our speakers and guests this morning. Your Son told us to give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. We know we must do both, and as told to us in Romans 13. We know it is Your will that government exists to provide an orderly set of rules that enable us to live together in harmony. These are based on the 10 Commandments that You gave to us. Father, please bless us, guide us as we celebrate our nation's 250th anniversary this year. We pray, honoring Your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Cindy. We'd like to acknowledge our military veterans and others active or retired police officers, firefighters, and other first responders. Will you please stand and be recognized? Great. And now, will the rest of you please stand as you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We've got some announcements. They'll be on the screen. You can watch through them, and you won't have to listen to me repeat them.
Here are today's notable announcements for you, the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. This evening at Bogart's Entertainment Center in Apple Valley, join your friends from SD46 for Pints and Politics, with special guest Mike Lindell, 2026 candidate for Governor of Minnesota. That's tonight, May 12th, at Bogart's Entertainment Center in Apple Valley. A small admission fee applies. Come hear exciting news and enjoy an Italian buffet as the Minnesota Voters Alliance hosts a special election integrity event on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026 at the Mermaid Entertainment and Event Center in Mounds View, Minnesota. Welcome and listen to keynote speaker, Judicial Watch attorney Eric Lee, along with Representative Pam Altendorf, Vice Chair of the House Elections Committee. All that and more. Tuesday, May 19th at the Mermaid in Mounds View, Minnesota, starting at 6 p.m. Boys are growing up without fathers. Families are struggling. Crime is out of control. Students are undisciplined and not learning. The seams holding our society together are coming apart, and for too long, the response has been surface-level solutions that don't last. On May 27th at the Golden Valley Country Club, meet Dr. James Hall, physician, mentor, and author of the upcoming book, Grown Boys. Dr. Hall will speak and lay out the roadmap for change. Visit takechargeus.com/gala for details. The state convention of the Republican Party of Minnesota is Friday and Saturday, May 29th and 30th at the Duluth Entertainment Center. Delegates and alternates elected at the 2026 BPOU conventions and elected by any affiliates will compose the convention, which will be endorsing a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, a gubernatorial and lieutenant governor candidate, and several additional candidate seats. Guests must be sponsored by a state convention delegate or alternate or campaign committee. Visit mngop.com/state-convention-2026 for specific details. Save the date. June 5th is the Lincoln Reagan Dinner with featured speaker, former Governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. Location and pricing to be announced. Visit mngop.com/Lincoln-Reagan-Dinner for more information as it becomes available. The Conservative American PAC is holding the annual Hog Roast Dinner, Saturday, June 20th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Chanhassen American Legion. Come and enjoy a pulled pork dinner with all the sides. Guest MC, Representative Walter Hudson, will be hamming it up along with other Minnesota candidates. So be sure to make this a must-do event on your calendar. Visit conservativeamericanpac.com for information and registration. And now, back to the meeting.
Okay, folks, I'd like to also remind you about the straw poll for governor. When you checked in and paid your attendance fee, you should have received a ballot if you are a member. And in any case, I want to remind you that this ballot is binding on our delegates that we elected here to represent us. They'll be at the state convention, and their first vote is going to be bound to the results of our straw poll. And we'll announce that later in the meeting. We want to make sure that everyone has a chance. At this point, we have some candidates who are stumping for office, and they have a limited time, but first one we have on this is Diane Krenze. Diane? And Diane is running for Hennepin County Attorney. Are you tired of Mary?
Yes. Someone who was working on my campaign said nobody should ever know the name of the Hennepin County Attorney as well as we know Mary Moriarty's name, right? Well, I'm Diane Krenze, and I'm running for Hennepin County Attorney. I can tell you that I worked in that office as a prosecutor for over 40 years. I started in 1983 when I was still in law school, and it was the reason I went to law school was to be a prosecutor. And why would somebody want to be a prosecutor, right? Because my feeling was, well, I wanted to hold people accountable. I will say that as a good Lutheran. Holding people accountable was important to me. But the other part of it was I really had a heart for victims. And some people who want to, cheer for the underdog, they do it. They go and they're a public defender thinking that the defendant is the underdog, but the real unheard person are the victims. So I decided a little more than a year ago Thank you. To leave that office because I saw what Mary Moriarty was doing. We were having policies that were not in the best interests of victims. Victims' rights were actually being violated. People were being let go, and people were not being held appropriately accountable. I told some people I originally reached out to the DFL because everyone says you can only win if you're a DFL endorsed person, and they had no time for me. So I went where my natural inclination is to be a conservative independent. So I have been working on my team. My team has grown in the last few weeks. One of the things that we're doing is we are going to be doing town hall events in Minneapolis in places where there have been lots of break-ins of cars. So if anybody here knows about some crime spree that's happened in your particular area, please let me know, and we can schedule a park town hall for you as well. One of my goals is to not only have victims heard again, but to hold people appropriately accountable for what they've been doing, and to repair the really destroyed relationships with law enforcement. Law enforcement is really suffering because the office no longer does training with them. They don't feel supported. And one of the things I really enjoyed in that job was working with the police. I loved working with them when a case first started and helping them put together a great case so we could get the person who needed to be held accountable. So I'm here to let you know who I am, what I'm running for, but I'm also asking for your help. So number one, if you can support me by voting for me in the primary, I have to be either number 1 or 2. There's 4 other people. They're all men. You'll know it's me. And they are all DFLers. They're all looking for the DFL endorsement. Number 2, I'm asking for you to consider volunteering. And finally, I'm asking for you to donate to my campaign because I need some donations. And if any of you want to have a house party or a gathering in your backyard with neighbors just as a meet and greet with no strings attached, if people wanted to donate, they could. I'm very open to that as well so that I can get out and meet everybody in the community and in Hennepin County. Diane Krenze, running for Hennepin County Attorney, DianeKrenze.com.
Thank you, Diane. Go get them. Also, we have Quentin Wittrock, endorsed candidate for CD3 Congress.
Hello. Thank you very much. Yes, it feels so good. Whenever I see the governor candidates and the Senate candidates around, and we're at all the same places, I want to say, nah, I already have my endorsement because it feels so good to be past that stage. I feel like the people, and many of you were the people, endorsed me. You really retained me as your lawyer, and that's what I did for my whole career, as your lawyer to build and present the case against Kelly Morrison, the sitting person sitting in our seat in U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C. And so as I have been building this case, I am pointing out that we, the people of the 3rd District, those of you who live in the 3rd District, don't really have a true representative in Washington, D.C. Dr. Morrison represents not only her party, but I say a wing of her own party, the progressive wing, the far left of her own party. Those are the only people in the 3rd Congressional District who have a representative in Washington, D.C. Even a moderate Democrat, and I know many of them, don't feel represented by Kelly Morrison. Certainly independents and anyone to the right of center are not represented by Kelly Morrison. And I will truly represent the citizens of the 3rd District and no one else. So I am focusing on her voting record, and I have a great blessing in that Kelly Morrison has quite a voting record. She was in the Minnesota legislature and, in fact, was the tie-breaking 34th vote in the Minnesota State Senate when the things happened that we all know about. The budget being blown, the budget surplus going away, the wacky laws, the extreme laws that Minnesota passed during that time. She was the tie-breaking vote. The fraud happened while she was doing nothing. Now I see the Democrats have a plan about an anti-fraud plan. Well, that's wonderful. But when Kelly Morrison was there, they didn't do anything to stop the fraud from happening. And then she moved on to the U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C., and more of the same. Closer? Okay, I think the sound maybe went down a little bit. She went to Washington, D.C., and is now voting lockstep with Ilhan Omar. Kelly Morrison has voted 500 times on our behalf, supposedly, in Washington, D.C. All but 3 of those were the same as Ilhan Omar, Nancy Pelosi, and Hakeem Jeffries. She's not a representative. She is just a bot being sent by her party to just click the correct box when it's time to vote. So I am building the case to have, I'm calling it the case to replace Kelly Morrison. And that's what I'm running on, and I appreciate all your support. Like Diane said, all of us as candidates need financial support. My wife and I donated $100,000 to our campaign, and we told people we would match the first $100,000. We got that right away, and so we're well over $200,000 raised already, but we can always use more. Kelly Morrison's raised over $1 million, so we need even more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and now we have from Minnesota Senate District 45, Shannon Bruce.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Shannon Bruce. I am the endorsed Republican Senate District 45 candidate, and I share Quentin's relief that I'm endorsed and I don't have to fight for votes anymore. But so Senate District 45 is around Lake Minnetonka, all the cities and towns around Lake Minnetonka. And you might be wondering, what are you doing here? And I'm going to tell you in just a minute. But first, before we do that, I have a trivia question for you. How many, and just hands, don't shout out answers, how many people here know how many Minnesota Senate seats there are in the state legislature? Hands. Nope. Somebody else? Nope. Okay, I'm glad we had those trivia questions. Cindy?
67.
Yes, I knew you would know. So, next question is, what is half of 67? You might need your phones or you have calculators. It's been a long time since we took math. Half of 67 is what? 33 and a half. Last question is, how many Republicans currently hold Senate seats in the Minnesota legislature? 33. So we are that close to taking the majority of the Senate back. In fact, if all the other races stayed exactly, all the other seats stayed exactly like they are today, and this one were to win, we Republicans would have a majority in the Senate. That is a big deal, and that's why I'm here today. So I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm I'm well equipped to do the work and go to St. Paul and get this accomplished. I've spent my life in government affairs and politics, and I've served as a city council member. I've been the chair of a statewide campaign committee for Secretary of State for Kim Crockett. I've served on 2 BPOU boards, and I have tracked legislation through the legislatures in 4 states. And I know how legislation is written, gets introduced, and the process it takes to become law. So I would love it if all of you would go to my website and either volunteer or donate or both, because the majority in the Senate is at stake, and this one race could determine that. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Shannon. And the last candidate that we have on the schedule is Steve Papa. Steve? Well, he was running for House District 35B. Sorry that we missed him. By the way, I forgot to mention to you, if you want to get a hat like this, you can. And you can wear it, and believe it or not, some people stop and ask questions about it. You can get one of these, buy it in the back of the room after the meeting. Thank you. At this point, time to recognize celebrating birthdays and anniversaries or anything else that, you quit smoking or you're just happy. I mean, it's worth being happy just to be alive. Is anybody celebrating something this month? Birthday. Who? Yeah, if you stand up and just tell people it's your birthday or anniversary or whatever.
Birthday next week.
Congratulations.
Birthday this Saturday.
Birthday on May 1st.
Our 60th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
My wife couldn't be here this morning because she had to work, but it's her birthday Sunday.
Good.
Since I'm involved with the World War II History Roundtable, I just wanted to bring to your attention that last Friday was the 81st anniversary of VE Day, Victory in Europe.
Amen. Is that it? Well, thank you. By the way, you've seen a lot in the news lately about the immigration and customs enforcement, or we know as ICE. Well, I understand that Trump is now going to call it the National Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or NICE. It'll just make those liberals turn green when every time they say NICE. Yeah, folks. We're going to take a short break at this point. For our main speaker should be coming up. She's not here yet. Yeah, we'll try a 5-minute break, and go ahead and enjoy each other for 5 minutes. Thank you.
You're watching Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We'll be right back.
They stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and answered the call. They moved forward, advancing the ideas that everyone was free, everyone was created equal, everyone has the right to pursue their own dreams, and that our nation was founded on those ideals. But not all of them came back. Some remained, never to go home, never to see their families. And some we lost this side of the field of battle. They were sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, greatly loved. They charged forward for honor and peace and freedom. We acknowledge the empty space where we want them to be. Together we pay sincere tribute to those who fought for us, those we remember, those we love.
Folks, can we reconvene? Thank you. We're sorry that our speaker has not arrived as yet, but I trust that she will be here shortly. So there's a couple of things we can do. We've done our three-minute stretch. We'll be moving into what we call, we'll bring it up from the end of the program, we'll bring up the 2 cents for 2 minutes. There's a number of people here who I've been informed are candidates and are not on the schedule to speak, but we'd like to give an opportunity for those people. And Cindy Pugh has also some very good information about one of our longtime members, Fremont.
Thank you, Terry. I neglected during that last opportunity when we could stand up and say we had something special going on, that one of the senior Republican longtime members, Fremont Gruss, who is a close personal friend of mine for over 15 years now. He was one of my constituents when I served in the Minnesota House. Fremont is celebrating his 102nd birthday on May the 28th. And so I can't believe that I stood up and I said I had a birthday without mentioning that Fremont has a birthday. Somebody gave him a hat the other couple years ago when he turned 100. His little black hat says 100 never looked so good. And just yesterday I made a little red 2 and I put it over the 100. So we're all ready to go for the birthday party. And I thought that I would take this opportunity to share Fremont's address. I know that he wouldn't mind. He still lives in his home in Deep Haven, and he has care providers that are with him all the time. But I take him to church with me on Sundays when I'm in town to Fort Snelling, where the veteran is remembered. And so if you want to write down his address and send him a card, that's my goal, is just to fill his mailbox full of birthday cards. So it's Fremont, Fremont, Gruss, Gruss, and his address is 55. So, anyway, and then I have a little bit of something to say about the CD6. Should I do that now, Terry?
Could you repeat his
Yes.
birthday?
Yes, May 28th. He'll be 102 years old, and 3360 Shavers Lake Road, Deep. So I was honored to have been elected by this body to represent the 6th Congressional District, and I attended the full committee meeting on which I'm a voting member now, so thank you so much. I'm really honored by that. And I also attended the CD6 convention last Saturday, where we signed up a whole bunch of members and hoping to do a lot of the same. I'm going to put the flyers that I picked up, flyers from all the candidates that I added to the back table, but Tom Emmer's flyers, I don't have that many, but I scooped up as many extras as I could find. I wanted to report that 2 things, that Tom was endorsed with over 88% of the vote. There was another candidate who ran, but Tom, of course, received the endorsement, and almost everybody was very, very pleased about that. And then every year, Tom announces a Volunteer of the Year award, and that was given to one of my very good friends, Vicki Ernst. Many of you may know her. She was recognized with that honor. But the very special thing, and I have the chills as I'm saying this right now, is that Tom renamed the award in Judd Mowry's honor. So it is the Judd Mowry Award of Volunteer Recognition for the year. So I just knew that this body would be grateful to hear that. Judd was a longtime member of just such reputable, character and integrity. So that is what I have to report. And if anybody has any questions about the congressional district, just let me know. I brought my minutes with.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there anyone else with 2 cents for 2 minutes? Here we go.
Okay, I brought some visual aids up here for you. So, I'm Shar Guffian. I'm with the American Majority. I'm the new executive director for the state of Minnesota. So, Lonnie Leitner is still the chief of staff for American Majority, but I'm the one who's on the field here in Minnesota doing the trainings. So, good news. I live up in Hinckley, Minnesota, but I do trainings down here. So, tonight I'm doing one in Burnsville, and I'll have the information over on the counter over there, but it's called Step Up and Serve. This is for candidates or anybody who wants to help their candidate win. So this training is for everyone. So do not think just because you are maybe not considering a run for office that this couldn't be a good training for you. In addition, we are hiring door knockers in CD2. So if you or anyone you know works down in the 2nd Congressional District, let them know. Come grab me, grab my card, or take a photo of this QR code and go to our website and sign up for it, or send it off to whoever. Our door knockers, we're starting them at $25 an hour. So would love to see if anybody here is interested or if they know somebody. And then back on the counter, this is like a smorgasbord of different trainings that I currently offer. But if your area would prefer something more specialized for you, I can cater to you. That's so much fun for me. And so I will also have a clipboard here if anybody wants to sign up for our newsletter. If you're not currently getting the American Majority newsletter for Minnesota, just let me know. I would love to get you on that as well. So I hope I was close to the 2 minutes. I still had 43 seconds. You guys don't know how hard that is for me to be quiet.
Thank you. Okay. Terry Watt is going to talk for Mike Lindell.
Yes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless of what the straw poll is when you guys voted, I want you to consider somebody that you may not think is electable, but certainly is. Okay, it's Mike Lindell. I've got a lot of them that I can give out. Not only does Mike have 11 points, but if you go to his website, MikeLindellGov.com, you can see the events that he has. He has his own events, and he'll go there and he'll go through all of these, but he'll tell you how he's going to do it. How he's going to do it. Like in 2016, when Trump ran, you didn't hear a lot of good things about him. They kind of slammed him. But what do you have to lose to listen to Mike Lindell and really compare him to what we're seeing now on these governor forums? Mike is a guy that had a business that was pretty much slaughtered by the media. He lost his business almost, but he didn't. It's coming back because of what the media did. Costco and the box stores got rid of him, but he came back. He started bringing attention to President Trump about the fraud, and he was laughed at. But it does exist. He's going to fight for Minnesota because he's from Minnesota. He's got a business in Minnesota, and he wants businesses to come back. He wants our friends, all the grandparents that have left because they can't afford to live here, and they live 6 months plus 1 day away from their kids and their grandkids. He wants them to come back. So he needs to make a Minnesota where people will come back. Our families will come back. And he's more than just pro-life. He'll tell you how he wants to be pro-life. It's about the babies, yes, but it's about the mothers and the fathers that have lost their children, that are hurt, that have abortion wounds that are deep, that need to get help. We have lost a generation. You got somebody that goes to Minnetonka, 1,000 kids. You've got 300 to 400 missing. What are we going to do to cut the head off that snake? But he's willing to talk about it and learn how to talk about it. Other candidates aren't. They're just going to give you pat answers. Mike's going to talk about getting rid of Sharia law. He can also talk to, and President Trump has opened up the door here in the state of Minnesota for us to change Minnesota. Mike will be there for 6 years. Am I done? Anyway, let me finish my thought, okay? Mike will be there for 6 years, 2 years with President Trump, and then if we're really, really smart and we get somebody like J.D. Vance or some of these other great, strong Republicans, we can change Minnesota. If we elect a bad governor for 6 years, there's going to be a big vacuum, and we're going to get back what the Democrats said. Well, look what they did. Look what they did. Look what they couldn't do. So I would challenge you, if you haven't listened to Mike Lindell, go to his website, MikeLindellGov.com, and go to one of his events. It's kind of like going to a Trump rally.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. One thing that she did say, no matter what, is listen to the candidates and make up your mind with information. We are pleased that our speaker has arrived, and Annette Meeks, I've known her for a long time. She's the chair of the Minnesota Freedom Foundation. One of the most knowledgeable people. She spent a good time on the Metropolitan Council, so she knows something about the inner workings of how the Metropolitan Council works, but also about how decisions are made about our metropolitan transit system. We'll allow Annette.
Good to see you, Terry. Thank
Yes.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Are you all set then?
I am set. Whether they're ready or not, that's a whole nother story. Good morning. All right, I like that. Everybody's wide awake, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our transit system here. Can y'all hear me? Okay, I don't want to yell. I served 8 long years on the Metropolitan Council. I call it my heavy burden that I bear. Governor Pawlenty asked me to do it and said his only goal is to keep it off the front page of the newspaper, and I said, I think we can do that. We started by not suing cities. I thought that was a good start. Metropolitan Council got a pretty bad rap, and it was all earned. And you know what? We're falling back into that same trap. We have communities now that are desperate, in need of sewer, water, other infrastructure, and the Met Council is like, that's how we got in the same situation we were 20 years ago. And it's a good lesson that we learned, and it probably is a good lesson on how outdated the Metropolitan Council really is. I like to always tell people, does anybody remember, and there's people in this room who were there, when the Metropolitan Council was formed? It was formed in the late 60s, thank you, formed in the late 60s because legislators from greater Minnesota, remember back then the legislature only met once every other year. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And they came to the cities and they were tired of hearing of all the problems of the suburbs. At that time, the exurbs were Richfield, where we are, and Bloomington. They were tired of it. And part of the problem was we had a failing bus system and we had a failing sewer system that needed to be fixed. So they formed the Metropolitan Council, and they thought they were very forward-thinking, and in many ways they were. If you take, kind of the pointy-headed people from Harvard and others that tell us we know best, that's who formed the Met Council. And we are stuck with that same system now, 50 years later, still doing the same thing. Nobody considers Richfield an exurb anymore, and instead they've kept operating in the same way, and they continue to operate in the same way as we did 50 years ago. Nothing remains the same. That's the one constant we have in this world, except the Met Council. And the problem we have is they use your tax dollars to do it. But now they've even expanded, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, expanded to making everybody in the state pay for some of the mistakes that they've made. And that is a real problem. How many of you have ever ridden a Metro Transit bus? There you go. How many of you ever ridden light rail? How many of you ever took the North Star train? Yeah, you don't miss it, do you? They ceased operations finally in December. I tried to kill that thing when I was Transportation Committee Chair of the Met Council. It was doomed from the beginning. But I'm going to talk a little bit now about the death spiral that the whole transit system is on here in the Twin Cities, and why whomever is our next governor needs to take this as one of the most serious issues that need to be addressed, only because we're all paying for something that very few people use, and there's better ways to do it. When they I brought up all the history of the Met Council in, I believe it was 1967 when it finally became law. I brought that up for one reason, and that is because the Met Council was supposed to be a model for other states on how to do transportation and infrastructure. We were the first in the nation to do it. You know what? We were the first and the last. No one ever copied us. And there's many reasons for that. But the most important reason is there's better ways to do things, especially now. The system that we had in 1967, when you consider, I live out in Farmington. Farmington was still a farm community in 1967. It was a farm community in 1977. The idea that we're going to still have the same representation, make the same decisions that we did in 1967 is preposterous. But let me just give you some statistics on what has happened that has rapidly brought about this death spiral I'm talking about. We've lost 60 to 70% of our ridership all across the board on every type of train, bus, whether you go on the fast buses. I forgot to ask if anybody's done any of that. No matter what it is, we lost 60 to 70% since the pandemic. Light rail today only operates with 60% of the customers that it had prior to 2020. The North Star commuter rail that we shut down in January, 15%. And were it not for the brave actions of Representative John Kosnick of Lakeville, it would still be operating at 15%. And heck, it might even be down to 13%. Nobody counted. Nobody cared. I care. We pay for that. And it was high time 20 years ago when we started it in 2009 to never, ever start heavy rail. But this was a dream that many people had. Oh, it's going to go all the way to St. Cloud, and we're going to have commuters that come into the Twin Cities every day. And when you ask the obvious question is, okay, you come in from St. Cloud, you ride to downtown Minneapolis, which was the terminus of the line. How do they get anywhere? How do you get, well, you could go to the airport. Of course you could, sure. Is it worth building a light rail line to get people to the airport? Of course not. And that's what we're left with today. But the one that has increased ridership is the most expensive of them all, and that's Metro Mobility. Everybody familiar with Metro Mobility? I hear it a lot, and I used to hear it a lot when I was on the Met Council, because they're the little buses you see outside churches, outside Walmart, outside grocery stores that have one person in them, and they take a person from their home to their doctor's appointment or wherever it is they need to go. Our bus ridership today is at 14% of what it was prior to the pandemic on many of the lines. Again, Metro Transit, and I don't mean to criticize the individual employees, they're constantly looking at these bus lines trying to figure out how to get more passengers on them. The problem is you can't, because our lives have changed so dramatically since the pandemic. Metro Transit still has on their website, American Public Transportation Association named Metro Transit 2016 System of the Year. And this was because they were recognized for their service, their vehicle and facility maintenance, operations, and their record pre-pandemic ridership. 2016 was 10 years ago, and they're still bragging about it. The whole world changed except Metro Transit. Now we have, with the ridership dramatically decreasing, and the trial systems that they've been trying they're finally starting to wake up and realize we have a problem here. We have a system that we have built that we cannot afford to operate. And now what do? As a background, the reason why I bring this up, in 2026, this year, For the first time ever, all Metro Mobility rides are paid for out of the state general fund. That means every one of you, every one of your friends and relatives and neighbors, thank you. It is now paid out of the state general fund, which means it is a bottomless pit. When I was chair of the Transportation Committee almost 20 years ago now, when I was there, each ride was subsidized by taxpayers in the metro area at $19.85 a ride, each way, $20. So you figure a round-trip passenger going to and from a doctor's appointment just costs taxpayers $40. Multiply that by the ridership, which has increased so dramatically in the past few years, it is remarkable. And you start to realize why they had to transfer this to the state general fund, because there's no other way to keep up with it. In the meantime, the 2023, as I like to call it, the rogue legislature that passed all kinds of things that we're only now slowly figuring out how bad it was and the damage they've done long-term to our state, they took all of the transit and enacted a 3/4 of a penny tax on everything you buy, sales tax, and that's what's funding all of the transit in the meantime. It's something Metro Transit has dreamed of since 1967. They wanted a secure meaning permanent form of taxation that would fund their operations. They got it from the 2023 legislature. And they got even more with the state picking up the Metro Mobility. So it is, all systems are firing over there. Their costs are ginormous. These are numbers from 2024, the most recent ones they have posted. $558.4 million in total revenue. That includes all sources. That's federal grants, state grants, the state general fund, the counties, the federal and the state, and the motor vehicle sales tax. 70% of all that money that goes in goes towards the salaries to pay the bus drivers, the bus maintenance, all the facilities people. 11% goes to support the facilities, and 8.4 cents for fuel, which I suspect will take a ginormous leap this year. But who rides is the important part. Who is getting on these buses and trains right now? 51% are aged 18 to 34. Isn't that interesting? Because it is still primarily kids who take it to school, especially to the University of Minnesota and the other campuses around town. 43% make less than $35,000 a year. 80% are not peak commuters, so they're kids going to school. 55% are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. 23% use it for errands and shopping, and 52% do not own a car. So we have a group of people inside the metro area that is deeply dependent upon ridership, and now we're asking the entire state, and in the 7-county metro area, we are really paying a lot. How many people is this? On an average weekday ridership, 136,000 people. Just for perspective, in 2017, I just pulled that number out because it was one of the more average years. 136,000 today was 793,000 10 years ago. That's how much we've lost in ridership. So that 136 are the people who have no car. They're using it to run errands, maybe to get to the doctor, maybe to get to school, whatever it is. But why did we lose 600,000 people? I can tell you why. If you've ridden the light rail in the last couple of years, you know too. It's the crime. And it's the crime and the perception of crime. How many calls just on an average year do you think they got in 2023? Metro Transit Police? I had no idea, to be very honest, because when I was there, Metro Transit Police was about 14 people. Now it's over 79. Almost 90,000 calls a year from people on board the train or at the station fearful that something bad is happening. I don't know if you've ridden it and seen any of this, but I have. I used to take it out to the airport all the time. When I lived in downtown Minneapolis, it was pretty convenient. You get on the train at 5 o'clock in the morning, and about the last thing you expect is a roving party. But I swear to you, every time I got on, that's what I saw. People pulling out a pack of cigarettes and lighting a cigarette right on board the train. people smoking dope on the train, people doing all kinds of illegal activities on the train, people selling drugs on the train. But the worst is the threatening people. Oftentimes, they're homeless people who are sleeping on the trains overnight, and these are people who should be receiving help, and they're not. They use the train as their home. The other problem we have is they then tend to congregate around the light rail lines, scaring other people away. A friend of mine was physically assaulted while waiting for the train to go to work. A homeless person started mumbling to himself, saw my friend waiting for the train in downtown Minneapolis. He was on his way to work, dressed in a suit. This guy, for some reason, fixated on him, picked up a brick and chucked him right in the head. He ended up at HCMC being transferred by emergency to Abbott, where he had to have retinal surgery, not what he had planned on that morning when he was going to work. He moved out of the city of Minneapolis. I can tell you why. He had every reason. But the persistent crime continues on, even after I don't know what the number is, sextupled the number of people, the police officers we have. We have people checking for fares. We have people checking for vagrancy. No matter how many people we hire, we still have a persistent crime. In 25 through 26, the key safety and crime data from the Metro Transit, riders, this is a quote, residents and riders report ongoing issues with public drug use, vandalism, and smoking on trains. Despite declines in total crime, serious crimes such as assault and robbery have remained a concern, with a high-profile violent incidents report. Think about that. This is our public transit system. Rider perception. A 2024 survey showed that only 41% of riders feel safe on trains, and only 36% feel safe while waiting for trains. Though these numbers have shown slight improvements, I'm sorry, you're at 36%. There's not much room. You could go anywhere but up at 36%. It's awful. But the safety measures, they've increased the number of police officers, community service officers, safety agents, everything possible. It doesn't go away. And then they even go on to list the high crime areas. I could have told you this. They were the same high crime areas 20 years ago. And they're also the places that haven't gotten any better. They've gotten much more violent and much more worse. So how do we end this death spiral that our transit system is in? Because I do believe we do need some form of public transit. Do we need what we have? Heck no. And more importantly, why are we paying to subsidize people to use drugs, to ride around and have their roving parties? That to me is the worst offensive thing we have done. This is part of a whole I'm going to get into the history here very briefly. When we first started the light rail, I was a vote of one that voted against just about everything they proposed. But the thing I opposed the most, and those of you who've ridden the light rail will understand this, is what they call a barrier-free entry. Anybody can walk right on a train at any time without any proof that they have purchased a fare or that they're not there to cause trouble. And I was told at the time, basically the staff patted me on the head and said, don't worry about this. This is the new trend in public transportation. And I said, well, how is that? Well, barrier-free entry, because that allows everybody who have mobility issues, whatever it is, you don't have to go through a turnstile. You don't have to, like in New York City, where you have to put your ticket in and then it spits it out if you paid. We don't have any of that anymore. That's old school thinking. No, I think that's kind of normal thinking. You have to do that at Disney World. I mean, you do that anywhere you go. You have to show proof of payment, not on our transit lines. We're modern thinkers. Well, what did we get? We got a lot of people who rode it as their homes. We had a lot of people who ride it to cause trouble. And as I said, the roving parties that you see anytime you ride the transit lines, it's actually quite frightening, especially if you're in a car by yourself. And that's what we have got. Funny, the same thing, of course, happened in San Francisco, which if you look at most of the urban ills, we're not much different in Minneapolis than they are there. They call them legacy systems. These are transit systems that have been around for over 40 years. We haven't achieved that level yet, but we also haven't hit the level of crime and violence that San Francisco has hit. For some reason, I just went out there. But let me give you one of the most contentious issues that they will forever deal with. Can y'all hear me if I yell? Most contentious issues they will deal with, there we go, is the crime. And until they get rid of that, no one is going to come back. And the barrier-free system doesn't work. I don't care what they say. People will always find a way to cheat. I understand that. But at least we can make it harder to cheat. It's kind of like when I talk about election law. When we talk about we want everyone to vote, but we want to make it easy to vote but hard to cheat. In our system, we have a place that's easy to cheat and easy to vote. And what do you get? You get some people who don't believe our systems are very secure. I'm one of them. Same thing with our transit. We did the same thing. So what did San Francisco do? This past fall, they installed fare gates at their stations at the entrances and exits. 6-foot-tall saloon-style doors. You know what I'm talking about? The double-sided things that you have to swing open. They're made of plexiglass and metal, and they have waist-high barriers that you cannot get through unless you have a paid ticket. Guess what happened? Revenue increased by $10 million a year. Number one, people are actually having to pay in San Francisco. But more importantly, the crime went down to massive levels they haven't seen in 20 years. It was amazing. They have 1,000 fewer hours cleaning up all the vandalism, the spray painting, all the other stuff, the garbage left behind by people. The workers said in the 6 months, they saved enormous amounts of money in the cleaning, but the crime on the line itself fell 41% in just the first 6 months of trying this new experiment. A little safety goes a long way. And all they did was ask people to prove that you paid your fare, go through the turnstile, and if you're getting on that train, you're getting on that train to get somewhere, not to cause trouble. What is our response here? Nothing. Crickets. This is this kind of common sense stuff. It took San Francisco 40 years. It shouldn't take us 40 years. It should take us now about 4 months. When we get a new legislature in November, which I pray we do, and a new governor, I hope we have the opportunity to say enough is enough. And we have to stop with this weird experiment that doesn't work. We learned this with North Star. When you build something that doesn't have any audience that wants it, the only people who really wanted it were, as I said, the pointy-head people in Hennepin County that said we need this to become a first-class city. No, we didn't. We didn't need this at all. And now all we have is a multitude of crimes and problems as a result of this system, but we're also burdened with lines that were built that we cannot afford. We can't get rid of them. We took out federal government loans and grants to pay for the system that we cannot just walk away from and say, we're done. The experiment didn't work. So with all of that, and with COVID on top of it, that changed where we work, how we work from home. I was just on a don't tell anybody this, but I was just on a call while I was driving here. I was just listening, but it was about how our work patterns really have changed in the sense that we can be in meetings, as I was on my phone driving to this meeting, listening, and it's through the miracle of, and I'll say the bad word, but I support them, data centers, we now have abundance of the ability to do Zoom calls from London, Paris, or Kuwait into Minneapolis at any time of day, any time you want, with as many participants as you want. That's the beauty of where we live today. What we have here is a transit system that says everybody has to go to work in downtown Minneapolis from 9 to 5. And that is not, that world does not exist today, nor will it 10 years from now. So what do we need to do? Number one, and this is going to be, if I were the incoming governor, I would say this is your first and most important thing. We have to get metro mobility to adapt to the 21st century. They're still in the 20th century, really. And if they could be in the horse and buggy era, they would be there, because that's about how inefficient it is. It is so crazy that we spend $40, and that, again, that data is very old. I could not find any updated data on what the cost per ride is, but trust me, it's very expensive. There has to be a cheaper way. I can take an Uber cheaper than that, and certainly they could too. Part of the reason why Metro Mobility is you have to be certified to ride on Metro Mobility, And part of that certification is you might have a disability that is so profound you cannot board a regular route bus, you cannot disembark off a regular route bus because the station is unlevel, because all buses now and all light rail are wheelchair accessible or motorized walkers. They're all accessible, but so you have to have an extenuating circumstance. Yet those numbers that we certify, or in a permanent brain damage, is the other extenuating circumstance. But we have certified so many people now, we can't afford to run the system. So what do? We have to figure out, they just ran a test pilot program that ended in December 31st. So we're waiting on that data on what happens if we said, we'll give you a transit voucher. You can take a private taxi cab, you can take an Uber, you can take a Lyft. Did that work? I can't wait to see those numbers, because that is probably the most important thing they could do, is give people a choice. Do you want to wait for a bus to come to your house and pick you up? And again, there's rider-assisted Ubers and Lyfts. Those services exist today. So why can't we give people a voucher rather than having a full-time fleet of buses that we have to maintain, plus the riders that we have to, or drivers that we have to train? All of that system is wildly expensive, not to mention the infrastructure that goes around it. Or can we figure out how to better adapt this system to the 21st century? That should be our number one goal, because right now, as I mentioned, it's coming out of our state general fund. Somebody in War Road is paying for somebody's Metro Mobility ride here today, and that just doesn't seem fair. They have no such system in greater Minnesota. They have no one to get them where they go. What have they relied upon? Churches, volunteer organizations, and others that get them to their appointments. It works pretty well in greater Minnesota. Could that system work here in the metro area? Not with the numbers we have today, but there are ways to save money. And we should be the innovative communities that do that here in Minnesota. We've created this mess. Now we have to figure out a way to get out of it. But the other thing we have to do, and again, if I were to advise the governor on this, and I won't be quiet about this because I feel so strongly about it, we have to figure out what to do with what we built, because it doesn't work. And it doesn't work, and it was an expensive experiment now that we are burdened with forever and ever. Transit lines, you'll get a kick out of this. When we were first started building the now they call it the Green Line to St. Paul. Back in the day, it goes straight down University. Back in the day when they were building it, they dug up the old rail car lines that were there until the 1940s. They were still in the ground. We just paved over them. And when they were putting in the light rail lines, like, oh, looky here. There was a rail line here once upon a time. That's right. And they discontinued it because no one rode it. The streetcars went away, and we just invested in a whole new one 20 years ago. And it still doesn't work. Isn't that funny? What do we do with that? It's supposed to be a 100-year investment when you sign the contracts with the Federal Transit Administration in Washington. Well, we're not even 20 years into it, and we know it doesn't work. And we know that people's lives have changed so dramatically in how they commute and where they commute to, that this system of spokes that takes everybody to downtown Minneapolis isn't what we need. So what do we do with that? Let me tell you the other big labor problem that we have, and this is the big cost driver of all of this, is the federal government controls all of the salaries and the labor issues surrounding your light rail contracts. So when you sign those, as I used to call it, an oath in blood to the federal government, you're guaranteeing a lot of stuff that the average person, I never ever thought about until I sat there and saw what we agreed to. Let me tell you just one little thing, and then I'll take your questions. When we were on the Met Council under Governor Tim Pawlenty, we had the longest transit strike in the entire United States. I wear that as a badge of honor. Not because I'm anti-union, but because we stood up for taxpayers and said, enough is enough. If you were a bus driver, we didn't have light rail at the time when they went on strike. If you were a bus driver in the Twin Cities and you retired with your pension and you retired with your health insurance, not only for you, but for your spouse, and the Met Council taxpayers paid 100% of your premium. Who has anything like that today? No one. And we said, you have to pay at least a minimal $25 for your monthly health premium, something. There has to be some buy-in from the employees, but going forward, we will not insure the spouse for life. They have to pay the full freight. Well, you would have thought we said we were the great Satan. I lived in a condo in downtown Minneapolis, and I don't know who this poor protester was, but he got assigned to me. And of course, we have a fence all around our condo, so he would just walk around with his little sign. And I think all my neighbors probably thought, well, we knew she was Satan. She's the only Republican who lives in downtown Minneapolis. But be that as it may, that poor guy got the short straw of having to protest out there because there was nobody to really interact with. But with that said and done, we stood on principle and said we cannot afford this system going forward. People are living longer. People need to have, nobody has that wasn't even gold plated, it was platinum plated. Health insurance program like that today. And we did. We fixed that system. And everybody went back to work, and we had peace and trains and buses ultimately running on time. But those are the kind of legacy systems that exist today. And when you have almost 10,000 employees working on those systems, you can understand why that has to be brought under control sooner rather than later. And last but not least, we need to look at 21st century needs of the taxpayer who's paying for all of this. In all of the discussions that we ever had, don't even get me started about all the bike paths and the $1 million bike paths that we built through downtown Minneapolis. I used to call it the bicycle superhighway. Nobody has a system like that. But when you walk it every day, as I did, to and from work, you would see maybe 5 bicyclists on it a day. And we spent millions of dollars building this infrastructure for less than 3% of all people inside the 7-county region that bicycle to work on any given day. 3%. It's preposterous the amount of money we have wasted building infrastructure like that is no longer even relevant. And those are the kind of things that I think a common sense governor is going to look at. And now we're going to be forced to look at because our budgets are so constrained by the wild spending we've had for the last 16 years under Dayton and Waltz. And with that, I'm going to leave one other thing, is we have to figure out the safest method of transit. That's the one comment that I hear more than anything else when I talk about metro mobility or anything. People are afraid to ride our transit lines. They hear it when they come into the airport. They fly in from whatever city, and I hear this all the time. Well, I've heard your light rail isn't safe. What do you say? Do you lie to them and say, I wish you luck? And if you see people on there having a party, get off. It's truly a frightening thing to get on there and see the out-of-control behavior. And as much as they're trying to clamp down on it by hiring more police officers, it comes right down to the fact that these people shouldn't be on the train in the first place. They're not there to get from point A to point B. They're on there to cause trouble. And if San Francisco can recognize this as a problem, and I always figure they're kind of, the lowest rung on the ladder when it comes to doing common sense things. If they can figure it out, we surely can figure it out. But whomever is going to be occupying those offices over at the Capitol in the coming year is going to have a big responsibility that no one talks about very much, which is Metro Transit and our transit boondoggle that we have here. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. And yes, sir.
Do you know what the downtown employment base is now compared to, let's say... Do you know what the downtown employment base is now compared to, let's say, 1995 or something like that? Going back in time before the last 5 years?
I can tell you what... I don't know the numbers. I can tell you the building capacity. So, for example, I just moved out of my office in downtown Minneapolis last June, and my building was at 30% rented capacity. Yeah. And that's the Medical Arts Building at 9th and Nicollet Mall. You want a great location, plenty of vacancies, But that's not unusual. We were not a Class A building, so if you go into the Class A buildings like the U.S. Bank Tower, some of those, they're a little bit higher, actually a lot of bit higher. They're above 50%, but I know of no buildings, even the IDS and some of those, that are at 100%. No one is at that capacity anymore. And more likely, for example, the lumber exchange right on Hennepin and 5th, they just sold for $1, right? The building, right? And when you talk to the building and managers downtown, what they're talking about is we have to find alternative uses because it's not office space. And so, let's see, years ago, the Plymouth building was retrofitted and they're now on Embassy Suites. But again, how many hotels do we need downtown? We're pretty overbuilt on that right now, too. We have excess capacity. So what they're thinking is they're going to cater to the crowd that all moved into the North Loop, which is make them into cool apartments and things like that. And perhaps they will, but it's going to cost a fortune to retrofit, especially some of the older buildings. The old Dayton's building, that's for sale right now. That's a crying shame what's happened to that building. But when they first took over the Dayton's building, I worked there all through college. I never knew this. They had well water. They weren't even hooked up to the city. Yeah, think about that one. If you ever were at Dayton's early in the morning, the restaurants were up on the 12th floor. There were ice trucks that had to pull in to bring ice to the restaurants every single day because we couldn't make it out of the well water. It tasted too tinny. But they were not hooked up until like 1999, I believe it was, to the city pipes. That's crazy. So you start thinking about retrofitting some of these buildings that are 80, 100 years old. It's going to be it's hard enough to retrofit a building that's 20 years old, but you start looking at stuff like that. Then you throw in any that are in any designated historic sites, and you just can't hardly touch them because the windows have to be a certain type of historic that fits with the architecture of the time. Good luck with that. So this is going to be a persistent problem. When people keep saying, oh, downtown is back. Yeah, it's back because we have the Wolves in the playoffs. That's about it. Every day, more and more restaurants in Minneapolis and St. Paul close, and there's a reason for that. Nobody goes down there to work, and nobody really wants to go down there to play. Very sad. I'm sorry? I'm sorry, still...
Will Target survive?
Will Target? The headquarters? I believe they'd be out of there tomorrow if they could. Again, I'm speculating. I don't know, but they've moved a lot of operations out to the suburbs to get away, and I see them moving more and more employees. The more employees have to come downtown, the more you hear. I have a friend who works at the U.S. Bank headquarters between 7th and 8th. No, between 8th and 9th. And she was telling me just recently that during the protests all winter long, they would get emails that would say, there is an incident at 5th and Nicollet Mall right now. Please be advised that there is an abundance of police in the neighborhood and whatever. And she said my entire department would empty out immediately. Everybody would go downstairs, get in their car, and drive home because people were so afraid of being caught in either an ongoing riot or worse, physically harmed. And so you wonder, I wonder why they didn't ride buses? Well, of course not. They're scared to death to be there in the first place. They want to get out as quickly as possible. And she said she finally told HR, you've got to tell them to stop sending out this emergency thing when it's 4 blocks away. And they said, you don't understand. We have to send those out for the safety of our employees. And she said, but it's really causing a morale problem. I think it's deeper than a morale problem. We have a safety problem. And it starts with the mayor who encourages people to do bad things.
First of all, some good news. A year from this July 4th, there will be 4,000 to 6,000 barbershop singers in downtown Minneapolis.
There you go.
At the Target Center. So greatest music in the world. That's now why I'm here. Hey, full disclosure, I used to drive one of those white buses for a couple of years.
Metro
in Metro Mobility.
Okay.
And found it to be one of the most interesting things I've ever done in my life. You mentioned, and I believe this is still true, that to ride on one of those buses, you need to be ADA qualified, Americans with Disabilities Act qualified. You talked a little about there being a fair number of students and other random people using them. You still have to be ADA qualified to get on those buses, correct?
They're not using Metro Mo. They're riding regular route buses.
Okay,
Or light rail.
that I understand.
Yeah.
But how has that ridership and cost gone over the years?
Oh my gosh! When I was still on the Met Council, I actually wrote down the number here. Metro Mo, the numbers are outrageous in terms of the number of people that are qualifying. He mentioned ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. So if you qualify, you have to fit one of the categories on that. The numbers are astronomical on how many people qualified 2024. I'm going to find it here because it is so shocking. I know I wrote it down. The numbers are shocking, like 87% increase over 2017 is the percentage of people who have qualified to ride. Now, they all don't, but on any given day, any given year, we're approving massive increases to the people who do qualify. And at the public subsidy, somewhere in here I have the number, and I can email it to you, because it's wild. And all I keep finding are all the crime statistics. 1,000 citations last year just for smoking. Think about that. You can't smoke anywhere in Minnesota in public, but people go on light rail, 1,000 of them, and lit up cigarettes just in front of an officer. Amazing to me. I will not find the number, but I remember looking it up this morning and putting it in my speech here about the number that is right. 80% from 2006 to 2019, 2.1 million riders per year on Metro Mo. New active customer applications, 57% of all the applications for new riders occurred in 2024. So we're doubling the number of people that we're serving, which is why it's unsustainable, which is why they moved it to the state general fund.
Right, and the rider still pays a very small fee to...
No, they pay nothing now.
You don't, I mean, the driver doesn't collect $4 from you?
No.
That is nuts. That's all I got.
No, you're correct. It is nuts. They decided it was easier and cheaper. They're actually getting towards lowering all the fares on all the trains. I didn't get into that because it's so complicated. But we used to have peak hour. If you're riding at rush hour, you paid more. If you rode during the middle of the day when fewer people were getting on the bus at 10 o'clock, and they decided it was too complicated, so now they've just lowered it to one fare, and now they're lowering that even lower. So the fare box recovery is what the term is used in the industry. How much money do you get? Metro Mo, when I was on the transit, was less than 15%. And now they've decided it's not even worth collecting that 15%. We'll just collect nothing. Yeah.
There is a free ride.
Yeah, it is a free ride, indeed. I don't know who's first.
I have a question, a billion-dollar question. We have a line, not finished yet, from Minneapolis to Eden Prairie.
I'm sorry, to where?
From Minneapolis to Eden Prairie, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Eden Prairie. Oh, my gosh. I could do a whole speech on that.
It's about 4 or 5 years overdue. It's double the original
4 or 5.
expense.
It's a decade. A decade past due. A decade. I was on the Met Council when they started that line.
What's the status?
Oh, my gosh. How long do you have? I'll be very quick. When I started, it was about $1.3 billion from Minneapolis. It was called the Southwest Light Rail out to Eden Prairie. $1.3 billion. At the time, I think I was the only vote to cancel it, and they looked at me like, oh, no, Eden Prairie really wants this. Ha! We are now, during the Dayton administration, it hit $2 billion. $2 billion to build the light rail line out to Eden Prairie from downtown Minneapolis. Governor Dayton said, not one penny more, or I will cancel this line. That's the last we heard about it. until, if you follow it, it's over $3 billion now. It is 10 years behind schedule operating. They now say it will operate fully in 2027. Anybody want to place some bets? I'm with you, because I can guarantee you they have done. It's like Laurel and Hardy build a light rail line with this thing, except that it's such serious money, $3 billion. You start to think about what that could be put towards instead of a line to nowhere that no one wants. It boggles my mind. But I keep wondering where Mark Dayton is when he said $2 billion, not one penny more. Well, we have a lot of pennies more. It's at $3 billion, and they still haven't run one train on that rail line. And I'll bet you they will open it on December 31st, 2027, just to say they opened it on time. Yeah, except that it's 10 years too late and it's $2 billion over budget. Yes, ma'am.
375. Thanks for coming. We're from Farmington. Go Tigers. Woohoo! I was wondering, what do you think of President Trump's suggestion that these data centers provide and pay for their own water supply and their electric?
Oh, honey, I could give you a whole... that's what I was just on a call about, data centers and the new technology. I don't even know where to start. I'll tell you two quick things. The data centers that are being built today are so vastly needed, number one. But number two, these technology companies are greener than we ever will hope to be as a state or a community. Just know that. These are run by tech titans that are, they're out in San Francisco, and they're kind of on the left wing of the left wing. And these are people who are, like I said, they're greener than we ever will do. Most new data centers are filled with recycled water, that they have developed their own systems that reuse the water again and again. The average data center that exists today, this boggles my mind, but any farmer who farms 75 acres, which is about what many of these data centers occupy, they will use 2 times that water when they irrigate their fields. And we hear nothing about that. But the data centers capture that water and then refilter it and run it again. So that they call it a closed loop system that they are using that works very, very efficiently. And when it comes to the energy thing, oh my gosh, we used to hear this. Most of these data center opposition are from the far left, and they're organized by people who they're not Luddites. They just don't want it in their backyard. But they still want to use their phones and have access to all the technology that we want. And now we have this permanent organized opposition to data centers who are using out-of-date information, more importantly, to confuse people and make them fearful about what's going to... One of the things I often say to my Farmington neighbors is, what would you rather have on that property? 250 new homes, which means 450 cars going in and out of that subdivision every single day. Or a data center that will have 1,000 employees. One of the new ones that I was just looking at today, 1,000 employees, all of which make close to 6-figure salaries, that will have 80 to 100 cars going in and out every day. But more importantly, are willing to invest in our energy grid to make sure it's sustainable and affordable to everyone. Whether that's, they call it all of the above, whether it's green energy, whether it's solar, nuclear, whatever it is. But they pay to upgrade the grid because they understand, just like when they build a Walmart supercenter in Lakeville, they suck as much energy at that Walmart supercenter as a data center. But people love to go to Walmart and get things cheap. I do too, right? We never look at those big retailers and say, well, we don't want you in our community. But we do with data centers. And again, it's an organized coalition on the left that doesn't want them. And I often question why. Tell me what it is in a data center inherently that, where I'm going to talk Dakota County here, so the rest of you don't want to hear. On the corner of Pilot Knob and County Road 42, there is a big granite quarry that has been there probably for 100 years. Been there forever. They had a data center, it's dug deep into the ground, If you didn't know it was there and you didn't see the big excavation trucks and the big trucks hauling out the gravel, you wouldn't even know it was there. But they're there. Part of Apple Valley's data center was to be built there, below ground. People even protested that. You wouldn't even have seen it. So we've hit this irrational level of fear of data centers. I lived downtown Minneapolis for 25 years. There was a data center 3 blocks from me. I guarantee you every one of you who's driven down Washington Avenue has driven by it and not known that's what it was. These can be very good neighbors, but we need to talk to them and we need to listen to what they're proposing rather than just say, no data centers. And it's become very, very contentious and awful. And the worst thing we can do is a moratorium and drive them to Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wisconsin, which is what they're doing. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir.
Thanks for coming in and some really good information. Is it possible that the Met Council is finally realizing that the ancient city center model is no longer valid because they keep building all of our transportation lines and bus lines to bring people downtown, and that just isn't the case? That's not how things work anymore.
100% agree. They used to call it a spoke and wheel system, that cities were built, and so spoke and hub, so that everything came to downtown Minneapolis, which is why the terminus was moved from 5th and Nicollet to the Target Center terminus now, and that's where all of the North Star trains went out of. That's where all the light rail trains end currently. That's where they're trying to do the bus rapid transit that will go north through Robbinsdale. That's the terminus. But the fact of the matter is, so few people need to come downtown. The numbers on, I left out all the commuter rail numbers because they're so tragic. But the numbers of people who rode that, it was about 22 people. We were down to 20 trains a day that came back and forth between Big Lake and downtown Minneapolis. And they would average about 20 to 22 people per train car. They basically had your own train car. And one of the things that they always want, they said one of the big problems was it wasn't equipped with Wi-Fi. That's right, because we couldn't even afford, when we built the thing, to afford to run it, much less equip it with nice things like, as I used to say, butler service and Wi-Fi. We just couldn't afford it. And my mom used to always say, grew up during the Depression, God rest her soul, but she used to say there's a thing between wants and needs. And we built something we wanted, not what we needed. And now we finally got rid of that. By the way, they just leased the train. We owned all those stupid train cars that we had to build, and we paid for them. We finally leased them to Texas right now. They're being put to good use for the World Soccer Tournament games down in San Antonio and I think Austin. But at least we got rid of them for a couple months and are getting some lease money out of them. But it's really tragic that we had to pay for all of that only to sit and rust in some train graveyard somewhere. Yes, ma'am.
One more question, and I know this is about Little Farmington, but it would help, or maybe you have, I haven't been to a lot of those meetings that they're having, but show us some other sites that have been successful as far as the energy and the transmission of the electricity and things like that. Show us some proof of what they're saying. It's going to be, just so great.
Do you know what's so interesting about what you say is they don't want to hear that side of it. I have offered to come and present some of the data center facts, and these are facts from other states that are happening, they're active. The one that's most relevant when people say, oh, it'll make all of our energy costs go up, it's just the opposite. Because they are paying such a ginormous amount of energy costs and the upgrade to the grid. We have excess capacity in states and cities that have large data centers, and the cost then goes down to consumers. Xcel Energy just produced a study, about 2 months ago, that actually confirmed that where they operate in Colorado and elsewhere, the costs go down to consumers. But nobody wants to hear that. because we've become just so obsessed with putting fear in people's hearts about you don't want this in your neighborhood. Heck, I'd take one tomorrow. But let me tell you, from a conservative Republican standpoint, my biggest objection to this and why I got involved in it in the first place is, let's say you're a farmer and you own 700 acres. It is your right when you retire to decide how you're going to sell those parcels of land, whether you want them to be subdivided or whether you want to sell them as one giant golf course, whatever it is you want to decide. That is the personal responsibility that's the center of being a conservative, in my mind. And when we say to somebody, you can't sell to this person because they want to put in a data center, that really gets a tingle up my spine and makes me want to go in and say, why? Are you going to tell me who I can and cannot sell my house to? Those laws were struck down during the 60s with the Civil Rights Act. And I thought we were beyond that, but we haven't. We just demonize new industries. And we demonize large data centers because we, for somehow or other, have decided that the left is correct in saying these are bad stewards, when in fact, these are some of the best stewards. There's the Farmington City Council and I believe the Dakota County Board actually went and visited 3 or 4 sites in Iowa. And in 2 of them, they did not even know that they were in front of a data center because you can't see them because of the large hedges and no noise. But more importantly, they're very good neighbors because there's very few cars going in and out. And that's the one thing that we lose sight of is just the pollution. And by pollution, I mean the occupancy on our roads of having 450 new houses put in versus 1 building. But they are really good jobs. Any of you who get my e-update, there's an article in there that'll be out this Friday. Meta is actually offering a month-long paid training course for anybody who wants to take it to work in a data center. They guarantee you a job when you graduate from their month-long training program, plus they'll pay you. And we keep hearing, again, data centers don't hire local. Yes, they do, if they can find them. But part of our problem is they can't even find enough qualified people in states to build these things. And so now they're offering to train you to work in their data centers and build them. These are great jobs. And we listen to the left on this at our own peril. Yes, sir.
How do we get the e-updates?
Okay. I should have passed this around. I came in such a hurry because I have to race over to the Capitol. I'll tell you what. I'm going to pass out some sheets of paper. If you write your email address on the back of these, I'll put one in each row. We'll collect them in the back, but I need them quick because I have to testify over at the Capitol at 1 o'clock. And so, yeah, and I don't like to get a speeding ticket. And I don't take the light rail. So I'll hand out, just write it on the back of these sheets of paper, and I'll collect them, and you'll get it this Friday. I'll add the names. I'll make sure that you get it still this Friday. If you don't like it, unsubscribe, but we have a lot of interesting information. It's almost all Minnesota-centered in terms of the 5 key issues. I should have said this. I'm sorry. The 5 key issues we follow, I call her the 5 T's. Transportation, which is my interest in Metro Transit. Transportation, taxes, elections, there's the T in there somewhere, just have to look for it. Who am I missing? Tech, which is the data centers and all of the different things that they bring to our communities, and I'm missing one in my hurry. Taxes, transportation, tech, elections, and something else that begins with a T. But we follow those issues, and we do studies, we do reports. We find good things that are happening in other states and bring it to people's attention. If you don't like it, you can opt out. It says on every one of them, here's how you opt out. But we go to about 10,000 people in this state every month with the news, and I think you'll find it very intriguing. Thank you all for having me here today. Always a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. And you all should know that FBI canceled their program. I learned about it Saturday afternoon, late Saturday afternoon, and Annette, graciously agreed to come in, and I think she did a bang-up job. Now, Yeah. Well, Annette, I don't know if you knew, but I was on the Met Council under Governor Carlson. Our biggest transportation problem was airport, dual-track airport, which we didn't really need. Thank God we didn't get it. Any case, we have a couple of things going before we call it a morning. One thing I'd like to do is, Mike, do you have the results of the straw poll? Oh, there they are. So this is the straw poll, and the delegates that you elected who are going on to the state have agreed to vote, I guess, for Kendall Qualls. Listen, when you talk about the Metropolitan Council and what a monster it might be, every member of that Metropolitan Council serves at the pleasure of the governor. In other words, the real problem is usually in the governor's office. They can change a lot of things with the Metropolitan Council and some of the outcomes. And so we need to elect a good governor. And I personally don't think we need a third term of Tim Walz. Yeah. We had a couple other people who are still interested in the 2 cents for 2 minutes. There you go.
Thank you, sir, Terry. Thank you, Terry.
John.
John Krhin, I'm a Republican candidate for governor. I wish I would have had an opportunity to speak before your straw poll. However, the bottom line is the election in November. I'm close to a median age of many of you here today. I'm 73. But interestingly, my heritage goes earlier than yours. My father was born in 1892. He came to the United States in 1913, and I was born the last of his 8 children when he was 60 and my mother was 50. I've served as a minister of the gospel in Minnesota for 50 years, and I thought that we were transitioning into, I don't know what, but still wanted to be active. And the day Charlie Kirk was murdered, I believe the Lord spoke to me as I was reading 1 Samuel 17, that just as David slew Goliath, God is calling me to slay that spiritual giant that controls the politics and the government of Minnesota. Now you might say, John, that's not very practical because, well, I'm from the Iron Range, born and raised in Chisholm. I have no political experience, but I've served people for 50 years in churches, and I know how people live. And I can tell you this, and I hope that you'll consider this. If we'll be honest, the problem that Minnesota is dealing with is spiritual, cultural, and moral. 20 years and we've not had a state-wide office won by the Republicans. I intend to turn that around, and the reason I answered that call is because I don't believe the other candidates that I researched in December when I first entered had the right path. I respect the Republican vote. I need your votes. And I'm going to speak at the convention. For those of you that will be delegates there, I had to pay $10,000 in order to do that, but I'll talk about that another time. Republicans, we are not going to win by just trying to beat the Democrats. They're going to get the same turnout. They're going to have the same result that they've had over the last 20 years. But we need to reach the non-voting Minnesotans. We need to reach the Republicans who have not voted. We need to reach the MAGA Republicans who voted for Trump but did not vote for candidate Jensen. And we need to win Twin Cities voters. That's why my wife and I are traveling the state in our fifth wheel camper, and why it's parked out in the lot here today. We're visiting every church that we pass in the Twin City area and stopping and looking for an opportunity to speak or be represented. We need to win the Christians back to the voting box if we're going to win the election. And I encourage you that are going as delegates. I don't know what your pledges have been or if you've signed the commitment already, but I encourage you to vote for me on the first ballot to keep this conversation going, and you'll see me all the way through the primary for sure. And I want to say this, God bless you for being here on this beautiful day. You could be in a lot of different places, so I know I'm speaking to the choir, but will you help me reach this young next generation? My 8 children, my 30 grandchildren, my 4 great-grandchildren is why I'm doing this, because we're on our way out. And even if I live to 104, which would be the age of my oldest brother if he was alive today, I'm still concerned that our children need the same chances that we had when we rode our bicycles anywhere we wanted in our neighborhoods. We rode a train, we took a taxi. You hear what I'm saying? God bless you, gentlemen and ladies, and God bless Minnesota. Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. We'll see you in Duluth.
I'll be in the back.
Did you hear? He'll be in the back if you want to talk with him. Was there someone else with a 2 cents for 2 minutes?
Right here.
Okay, great. There we are.
Real quick, Mary Cedarberg, I'm here. I'm on behalf of Ron Schultz. Actually, I'm not talking about him. You all know he's running against Keith Ellison. We need to take that position back. You'll hear a lot from him after the convention, I'm sure. But Thursday night, the 14th, there is a fundraiser for him in Bloomington, and I'm one of the host committees, so if you are interested in attending, I will give you the information. We'd love to see you there. I'll be in the back of the room. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, folks, one more. Oh, I'm sorry, Adam.
You're good. Yeah. You're good. Hey, good morning, friends. Adam Schwarzy, still running for the United States Senate. Just have a very quick announcement. Tonight is the last large debate for all of your Senate candidates. It's in St. Michael, but the good news is you can listen at home because it's also going to be on the radio, The Patriot. And so get informed, get involved, and let's take back our state. Thank you so much for showing up this morning. So great to see so many familiar faces. God bless you. God bless America.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah. Well, in just a second, I'm going to go ahead and draw for the door prizes. But one of the things that I did want to just take a minute to mention was the fact that amid all the revelry and whatever, let's not forget Memorial Day. You know, Memorial Day was a day we're supposed to remember those who fought for our country and gave us the freedom that we have. You know, it was President Reagan, you know, who said you got to have every generation has to spill blood to keep that freedom. It's not going to happen if we don't. I was in the Air Force, and I was training fighter pilots, teaching them to fly formation and all the good fun stuff. One of my students, Mike Baldoon, he ended up flying with Robin Olds, and they shot down a MiG. At the same table, right, we had a table of 4 students with each instructor, and we'd take them all the way through. At the same same table was Fran Driscoll. I'd say he was a good stick, by that meaning the stick and rudder options. But I can remember him sitting on top of my refrigerator drinking beer. But like I say, he came from Brown University. He bailed out at 16,000, and his parachute never opened. You know, there's all kinds of people. They did a lot. Remember them. Get yourself a poppy or something like that. Now, I'll go ahead and draw for our door prize, or I'll have you all draw. Fatima, would you like to come up and I can get this open? There we go. Okay, the last four are 6, 8, 9, 2. And one more. The last four are 6, 9, 1, 0, and that's the right here. Good. Okay, folks. It's all on your shoulders. Bring a friend so that they can learn about what you're learning. When I thought it was a great program we had this morning, and in spite of just the timing got mixed up a little bit. Just keep that in mind. Bring a friend, but more than anything, trust Trump and pray for your military. God bless you all.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit republicanseniors.mn.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other video programs. Or, on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota